Newsmakers, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a fun tutorial on how to paint a lighthouse with a couple birds. Now here's my palette, very simple and easy. I have blue, white, and black. I also have some mixing plates to mix up my colors on. I have a can with some water, some paper towels, and I'm working with 3 different types of paintbrushes today. The first brush is a large square flat brush. This is going to be used to make our background. The next brush is a flat rounded edge brush. It's going to be great for doing the rocks and the lighthouse. And the last brush is a nice small pointy brush for all the fine details. We use it like a pencil. Now I'm using an 8x10 canvas panel, but of course you can use whatever size you like. First thing we're going to do is mix up our background color for our sky. So I'm going to grab my big square flat brush in a mixing plate, and I'm going to be mixing up a light sky blue by grabbing at least 1 or 2 scoops of white, and then just a little bit of blue is all you need. You can always add more if you need to. Mix it up, keep it in a nice small pile, and make sure that it is a nice even color and there's no marbling. First thing we're going to do with this color is identify how much of our painting is sky and how much is ground or water. So I'm going to take the blade of my brush, which is just that tip edge, and about 1/3 from the bottom up, we're going to be drawing a line across, nice and thin line. From there, we're going to be throwing a couple of streaks throughout our sky with this light blue. It's going to be covering most of the sky, but you will see there are a couple spaces I don't paint in with this color. You'll want to do this step fairly quickly, because our next step we're going to be blending colors on top, or I guess just one color on top, and we'll need that paint to stay wet. Acrylic paint dries fast, so get it in as quick as possible. And once you're done, get a clean brush, and we're going to get into some white paint. We're going to throw some white paint really quickly into just a couple of those sections where you have not painted, and then using long brush strokes from side to side, we're going to use that white paint to blend with our blue paint to get a nice streaky, sort of cloudy sky. Then with a clean flat brush, we are going to be getting in the water. Now we don't need to paint up this entire bottom with this blue. We're just using straight blue from our palette. I'm going to have it really, really thin and shallow over to the left. And then when I get over to the right, it's going to go further down my canvas, sort of like I'm cutting the corner. Now, when it comes time to do that top line, the top of the water where it touches the sky, you can go real slow, use the edge of your brush to really make sure that line is nice and straight. Next, we're going to be adding a few lines of white. So I'm not going to clean my brush, just going to grab a tiny bit of white on my brush, throw a couple tick marks in, get a decent amount of the paint off of my brush, and then use the long brush strokes to blend it into the dark blue. This is giving a little highlight to the top of our water. We're going to do the same thing, but with black to the bottom section of our water to deepen up the color. Next step, we're going to be grabbing our medium flat brush. It's kind of round at the edge here. We're going to be marking out the space for all the rocks with black paint. So starting on the left edge, kind of overlapping our water, we're going to draw these rock shapes, little lumps and bumps. We don't want it to be a nice even slope. We just want a kind of rocky texture there. Go all the way across down to the bottom right corner, and then you're going to fill in everything below it with that black paint. Now, once you get that in, we're going to be taking a good 10 to 15 minute dry break so our painting can dry. So once we're back, our painting is dry, we're going to focus on the lighthouse. We're going to be grabbing our small, thin, pointy brush, and we're going to be marking out just how tall our lighthouse is and the placement of it. So with white paint, twirl the brush in that paint. I'm going to start my lighthouse right around here, and it's going to stop somewhere up in our sky, pretty high up in our sky. It's a tall lighthouse. Then draw a line. This is just the center line for the lighthouse. I would say about maybe 3/4 of the way up that line. We're going to draw a line across. It's about an inch, inch and a half. From the ends of those lines, we're going to draw a slight diagonal line downwards so that the top where that line is thinner than the bottom of the section that's touching the rocks. Next, we're going to be drawing another section with the white paint. We're going to leave a little gap between the section we just made and this one. These lines are going to be shorter than the lines we made before by just like a couple centimeters, and we're going to make a nice little square here towards the top of our lighthouse. Once we get these two sections drawn out, then we're going to fill it in. You can use the small pointy brush or you can use the medium round brush. Either one work. Now we want to give our lighthouse this sort of 3D effect. So we're going to be creating a light gray with 1 scoop of white and a touch of black. We're going to be taking this medium brush, or you could do it with your small brush, and we're going to be throwing a line of this on the right edge of both of those white sections. You'll put those lines in, and then I recommend either getting a clean brush or getting a little bit more white paint on your brush, and we're going to blend those lines out so that it looks like a lovely gradient between white and gray. I ended up doing a super light gray and then going back with something a little bit darker because I feel like it needed more of a contrast. Now with a clean pointy brush, we're going to be getting into some black paint. We are going to focus on the areas that kind of painted over top of the rocks, as well as the square area in between those two white areas and the roof of our lighthouse. So underneath that box, we're going to draw another box that's just a teeny tiny bit wider than the smaller box, but just a touch thinner than the actual base of your lighthouse. We're going to fill that in with the black paint, and then we're going to add a little roof, a little triangle to the top of our lighthouse. This really gives it that lovely shape that we all know it to look like. We're going to add a little flare to our lighthouse now. So at the top of the lighthouse, we're going to flick a tiny little thin line using light pressure and putting 2 little dots on it. This is just a fun flare for it. We're also going to be adding a couple little lines, almost like a top hat, and then adding a line on top of the hat for that middle section of black. And then we're going to do sort of the same thing to the bottom of the roof, just extending the lines outward. Next, with the black paint, we're going to trace the outside edge of the white sections of our lighthouse. Feel free to take your time, use very light pressure. You can steady your hand with the pinky on your canvas and just drag it down. That usually helps me. Now 2/3 up your base of your lighthouse, we're going to be drawing a line that sort of curves like a rainbow. This gives the illusion that the lighthouse is round. We're also going to be adding one window that is on the kind of bottom section to the right of our lighthouse, just a little dash mark. With the black, we're also going to be drawing a line at the top of our water. This will just help to really differentiate it from our sky, really make it pop out. And lastly, with our black, we're going to be drawing our birds. So for the basic shape for our bird, we're first going to start with a little dot for the head, just anywhere right around here. Then the body is sort of like a little flick away, and the wings are also just longer flicks out to the side. That is the basic shape for a bird. It doesn't need to be, super detail oriented because these birds are pretty far away. They're sort of just silhouettes of birds. I'm doing about 3 of them. Some of their wings are a little bit higher. Some of their wings are curved, right? Some of them are a little bit smaller than others. Now we're going to focus on the rocks. This is our last step here. So we're going to be using our small pointy brush to draw them out. And we're going to be mixing up 2 different grays. We're going to mix up a lighter gray and a darker gray. Obviously, one has more black than the other. They both use black and white paint mixed together. So you want to make sure you have a light and a dark. To draw out your rocks, I start with the lighter gray. So take the smaller pointy brush in the light gray. And what we're going to be doing is drawing out each rock one by one. As you get the hang of it, you might be able to do more than one rock at a time. But to show off how to do one rock here, I am leaving a small black gap around the edges of each of my rocks. So right underneath of my lighthouse is where I'm starting. I have this lovely, almost triangle shaped rock. Filling it in, you can use your medium brush to fill it in if it's easier. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of the darker gray and shimmy it onto one of the sides or one of the corners, and then slowly work it into the lighter gray to fade away. And that is how we do our rocks. So let you just go off and do as many rocks as you can fit in this space. Don't forget to keep a black barrier in between each of our rocks so they all stand out. Now we want to give our rocks a couple of highlights. So with our small pointy brush, get it nice and clean in white paint. We're just going to shimmy a couple of little random tick mark lines along the top edges of our rocks to really make them glisten and shine. And then the last step, whenever you're ready, is to just fix up some of those black lines if you need to. Maybe some of the rocks are touching in places, or you want more of a barrier in between. But when you are finally done, don't forget to sign your painting. Take credit for the amazing masterpiece that you've created, and we'd love to see what you're creating at home. Feel free to post on social media and tag us at muse_paintbar so we can check them out. And if you want to see more from our channel, see other tutorials that we have going on, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And with that, don't forget to always paint outside the lines.